2, 3.
Hello, hello. Hi, everyone, and welcome. Today is Monday, March 25th, and this is the second instance of Lab 6, the final Tech Speakers Lab, also known as Administrative Onboarding. Congratulations for making it this far. We're very excited. Thank you for everyone for tuning into this lab, the new Tech Speaker Onboarding session. During the call today, I hope to provide you with a little bit of information on how you can successfully navigate the ins and outs of the Mozilla Tech Speakers program. We'll have some time for a Q&A at the end of the presentation today. So of course, we encourage you to ask any and all of your questions. As you think of these, please feel free to add these at any time during the lab. Just hop on over to the meeting document that is linked in the calendar invite, and then add them to the Q&A section at the bottom of that document. Also, while you are there, please be sure to add your name to the roll call section of the notes document, as this is the only way we'll be able to know who's attended and completed this lab. So I'll say that one more time because it's so important. While you are visiting the notes document that you can find linked in the invite, please be sure to add the roll call section. That is how we'll be able to tabulate who has completed and attended this lab. I think if we mainly had a list of everyone who was attending this call, that wouldn't be very Mozilla of us. Right. Well, let's continue. And I'll start off by telling you a little bit about me for anyone who may not already be familiar. I am Michael Ellis. I work on managing the Tech Speakers program. I work alongside Jan Eves, who also works to manage the program, as well as Flocky, who's now working for Mozilla as a Tech Speaker staff and evangelist. And also, some of you may recall, Jessica Rose has recently joined our team, and she'll be working to oversee not only Mozilla Tech Speakers, but also membership for MDN. Me personally, I've been working with Tech Speakers since about 2016. I absolutely love the program. I wouldn't switch teams if you paid me. You can find my contact information provided here on this slide. I, along with Jan Eves, Flocky, and Jessica, can also be reached via ts-staff@mozilla.com. And if you need to reach me on Telegram, my handle is available there too. So before we dive right in, I want to take a moment right now to share a well-earned word of congratulations to everyone tuning in. I think that you all have been one of our most awesome and successful cohorts to date. And to everyone tuning in today who took time for his or her schedules to view the masterclass, who participated and delivered quality work during the lab sessions, we really want to thank you. You've earned the right to call yourselves Mozilla Tech Speakers. That's something that sets you apart, and I think something to be very proud of. In fact, fewer than 150 people have ever earned the designation of being called a Mozilla Tech Speaker since our program began in 2015. So believe me when I say that we are most delighted to welcome you aboard, and we hope that you feel equally as excited to join our motley crew. So you find yourself a Mozilla Tech Speaker, but what does that entail exactly? In general, the concept seems pretty simple after all. You apply to an event or conference that you're interested in presenting at, and if you're accepted, you go to the event and deliver your presentation. That makes sense and seems pretty simple, right? But once we start to dive into details of applying, traveling, and speaking, various questions start to arise. Questions like, can I host my own events? How many talks do I have to give in an average year? What exactly will I talk about? How far exactly can I travel? And how does this whole invoicing thing work? Hopefully, we'll be able to address these questions and more during the session today. During this call, we will review aspects of the program that take place before your events, such as speaking opportunities for you, tips on applying to events, when and how to request travel funding from Mozilla, and how and why we share our activities with the group. We'll also discuss important information regarding attending events. We will review how we typically handle travel for events, the importance of the code of conduct, things that you may wish to bring along with you when you travel and present, as well as other tips and tricks that you might find helpful. And finally, we will discuss post-event matters, like submitting event feedback forms and invoices for reimbursement. Hopefully, in reviewing this material, we can answer many of the common questions that tech speakers have when joining the program. And with that note, I'd like to give you the reminder to add any questions that you may think of along the way to the Q&A section of the notes document, and we'll be sure to circle back to these when we take a pause. So let's dive right in and start by talking about things to consider before your event. So staying formed is always a good thing, no? If you've ever seen the old G.I. Joe cartoons, in particular the public service announcements that used to air on TV, then you phrase, knowing is half the battle. I think that this phrase is especially true when it comes to finding the right event to apply to. One of the first steps in giving a talk or presenting a workshop is deciding which conference or event to submit your proposal to. But this task becomes a little bit easier with a curated list of suitable events that you can have at your disposal. And that's exactly why we put this calendar together. Because there can be a lot of noise in the conference and event industry, we try to make this process a little bit easier for tech speakers. To do this, we maintain a list of industry CFPs and a calendar so that tech speakers can view all the upcoming sponsored events and speaking opportunities that might be of interest to them and their region. The name of the calendar is our CFP calendar, calls for papers and participation. It's an excellent source of conferences. The list is managed by tech speaker staff. And if you want to view this calendar, you can do so via the link that's provided in the resources section of the notes document. Or if you think that you'd like to be added to this calendar as a curator with edit permissions, you can reach out to me, Michael, or Jan-Yves for more details on that. Typically, being added with edit permissions is best if you think you'll be adding multiple CFP opportunities to this calendar. But there's also an option if you just want to suggest an opportunity or two for an inclusion here. You can reach out to Jan-Yves, myself, or another member of the tech speaker staff. We'd be happy to assist you with adding a one-off event to this calendar as well. And if you want to check out perhaps a more eye-pleasing view of the exact same data found on our CFP calendar, then you should check out the webpage that was made by our very own tech speaker, Flocky. It's a quick little snippet is here for you to give you an example of what that looks like. He whipped this up for us one day, and it's a really great way to see at a glance what CFP deadlines are approaching. The URL is listed on the slide if you want to check that out, and it's also available in the notes document for this session as well. But the CFP calendar is not the only path for finding engagement opportunities, and I don't want you to feel like it is. If you would rather do more of your own thing and do your own research, we encourage that too. You can find opportunities for speaking and presenting workshops through the Mozilla Reps events portal if you like. If you are browsing the events portal and you do find an event that stands out to you, feel free to reach out to the organizer that's listed for that event and let he or she know that you are a Mozilla tech speaker who's interested in presenting or possibly participating in the event. Alternatively, feel free to conduct your own research on conferences, local meetups, or local events that are taking place in your region or community, and trailblaze your own path. It's entirely up to you. So once you find an event that interests you and you'd like to present at, then it's time to apply. Most of you have already watched the Technically Speaking CFP workshop. If not, I recommend you take a look at that resource and video. It's available on the Tech Speakers Air Mozilla channel. When it comes to applying to present, some tech speakers prefer to cast a very wide net and apply to many different conferences, while other tech speakers prefer to laser in and focus on specific events that they want to apply and speak at. The method that's right for you will depend on your personal preferences and what feels right. Regardless of which path you choose, I recommend setting aside some time to carefully think through your application. Also, you should always visit the event website to learn more about their particular CFP process and the particular event that you're applying to. To use an analogy, it's just like job applications. When you submit a job application with a customized cover letter, you're far more likely to get an interview. It's the same thing here. Your talk proposal is far more likely to get accepted if it's been tailored to the event that you're applying for. So to maybe put an example behind this, if you are interested in speaking about VR and you'd like to apply to an event that, after looking at their website and taking a look at their talk tracks, seems to have a bit of a focus on speech recognition, you might decide to put a little twist on your VR talk and speak about how voice commands can be used to navigate browsers in VR. It allows you to customize your talk and your proposal for the event in question while still staying in your comfort zone with the topic that you most want to speak about, in this case, VR. Also, one more thing to consider is that the time between submitting a proposal and getting an invitation letter from the organizer can vary greatly. It can vary by weeks or months from event to event. So after you do submit your proposal, be sure to keep an eye on your email inbox so that you don't miss any of those important opportunities when those replies do finally come. Now let's talk about applying for tech speaker funding. If you've been accepted to talk and present, whether it's a speech or a workshop, and you need funding or assistance for hotel, travel, other incidentals, then Mozilla may be able to help. As a tech speaker, you have the ability to request travel funding for an upcoming talk or workshop that you've been accepted to. All that needs to happen is that you just need to fill out an event sponsorship request form. There are a couple of things to keep in mind, and I'd like to go over those with you now. The program has a focus currently on funding travel for tech speakers who are presenting talks and workshops. By comparison, we have less of a focus on funding activities like attending conferences, staffing booths, providing swag for events, or even event hosting. So if you thought that you might give your next talk and then at the very end hand out 200 Mozilla t-shirts, then I'd just like to adjust that expectation for you a little bit now. Also, event hosting is something that seems like it would absolutely be in the tech speaker's wheelhouse, but it's something that we typically shy away from. The reason for this is that event hosting can be very expensive, very demanding on a program's budget. So if we were to scale our event hosting to any sizable amount, it would kind of eat through our budget at a prodigious rate. So for that reason, we tend to focus on where we get the best use out of our travel budget, which is tech speakers who are presenting talks and delivering workshops. There are, of course, other activities like participating in a discussion panel, delivering demos at a conference that we, of course, are willing to consider. But just to let you know a little bit about where our focus and our sweet spot is. Another thing I'd like to point out is that we typically ask tech speakers to request funding with a minimum of 4 weeks lead time before their event. This is particularly important for new tech speakers, and we do this for good reason. We do this because it takes some time for you to submit your proposal, your request for funding, and then for tech speaker staff to review that request, research it, and reply back to the tech speaker. Additionally, if you're a new tech speaker, then you have the added time requirement of once you are approved for travel, we have to set up your agency account, and that takes a little bit of time as well. And as everyone knows, flights get increasingly more expensive as the travel date approaches. Particularly within 14 days of departure, we see that prices tend to skyrocket. So for all these reasons, we ask that we have 4 weeks lead time so that we can review your request, get the appropriate answer to you, do all the back-end work that is necessary to set you up for your travel, and then get you booked at a reasonable price before the event. And let's talk for a moment about what happens after you submit your application for funding. So what happens is a team of Mozilla staff comprised of the tech speakers team and the developer events review team will review your request before making our group decision. We do this once a week. That meeting is currently taking place every Tuesday in the morning. Our average turnaround time for getting answers back to requests for funding is about 5 to 10 business days. So keep that in mind when you're submitting your requests. Once we make our decision, you'll receive an email reply that contains the results. Additionally, we try to notify you via Telegram as well, just to let you know, hey, that email has arrived. Go ahead and take a look at your inbox. The subject of that email always stays the same. It is TS sponsorship request and then your name at event title. And this is the exact same email that you'll use to submit your invoice after the event. So tip, hold on to that email because you'll be using it later on for invoicing. Great. But before you go off and deliver your presentation, we want to let you know, we want you to let us know about it by adding it to the Tech Speakers activity calendar and letting us know in Telegram. Adding your speaking and workshop activities to the calendar is super important. So I'll repeat that. Adding your speaking and workshop activities to the calendar is super important. It not only helps us promote your evangelism efforts and helps us to provide logistical support for you while you travel, but it also helps to measure the impact that tech speakers have over the course of the year. So for that reason, we ask that you please be diligent about adding your tech speaker related speaking activities to this calendar. Adding your activities to the speaking calendar is one of the two most important asks that we have for Mozilla Tech Speakers. It's a very simple thing that you can do that will have major impact on our internal reporting and our metrics at the end of the year. So because it's so important, let's take a look at a sample together and review how this is done. Letting us engage is just as easy as creating a single calendar entry. We do have a standard format that we use, and I'll go ahead and review that with you. The example here is Google Calendar, and this is a classic view. Your view might be slightly different, but for the most part, all the same points and tips will still apply. So number one, if you can see that in the slide here, in the title section, go ahead and add your title. We have a standard format, which is your name. Here it's Michael. Activity, here it's speaking. The topic, add event name. So Michael's speaking on VR or progressive web apps at event name. Here's an example, Super Web Conf. The activity type is typically speaking, talking, or it might be hosting workshop, giving workshop. Those are some common examples of the activity types that you see here. If you take a look at arrow number 2, be sure to click all day event. What that does for us is that floats all of the tech speakers activities to the top of the speaking calendar. So at a quick glance, Mozilla staff is able to see where the tech speakers are, who's traveling on that day, what they're engaging in. It allows us to have a very quick snapshot of the important information we need to know to support you. Arrow number 3 is just adding the location. Our preferred format here is city, country. Some tech speakers get very specific. They may include a university name, a room number, a zip code. That's wonderful, but it's absolutely not required. The best format here is actually just city, country. Number 4, I think, is an interesting point as well. If you can see arrow number 4, the point I want to iterate here is to make sure that you have the Moz Tech Speakers activities calendar selected. This is actually the most common mistake tech speakers make. They will add an activity thinking that they're adding it to the tech speakers activities calendar, but because Google Calendar defaults to our personal calendar, what can oftentimes happen is the event is created on a personal calendar instead. So if you've spoken 5 times over the course of the year, you've added 2 events to the tech speakers activity calendar, and you've mistakenly added 3 events to your personal calendar. From the staff viewpoint, it looks as though you've only delivered 2 events on behalf of tech speakers, and that could potentially impact opportunities like end of the year meetups, end of the year promotional swag, hardware give outs that we might be doing for tech speakers that have certain activity levels. So it's a very common mistake, but an easy one to prevent if you just take a moment to make sure that the correct calendar is selected. And of course, last but not least, hit save to create that entry. And if you have any details about this later, don't worry. All this information and more can be found in the Tech Speakers Events Process document that is linked in the meeting notes. So now, let's review some things to consider during your travel and event. When tech speakers need to travel, they almost always use Agencia to book reservations for airfare and accommodation. Agencia works just like Expedia or a similar travel website. In fact, Agencia is owned by Expedia and it's just been rebranded for business. So, if your talk has been approved for travel funding, you're free to book an Agencia. Once that happens, tech speaker staff will be notified and will review your request and approve the booking. These costs will be paid by Mozilla Central Billing directly, and you will not need to put them on your credit card or worry about expensing these later. It's all taken care of internally. All Mozilla sponsored travel must be approved via the Tech Speakers Funding Request form. So any agency to book your travel, your hotel accommodation, your train tickets, or even if you're submitting an invoice. Those all come after you've been approved for funding via the request form. And if you want to take a look at a link to that request form, it is available in the notes document, as mentioned earlier. 95% of the time, we try to book our travel through Agencia. There are, of course, cases where Agencia does not work or may not be applicable. So it is possible in some cases to book outside of Agencia, but anytime this happens, we do ask that tech speakers reach out to staff member first to discuss the situation and get approval before they book anything outside of Agencia. Very simple. Another thing to consider, Agencia accounts are not created until you have your first need for travel. So when that time comes for you, you can reach out to myself or Jan Yves, and we will assist you with creating your Mozilla Agencia account. So don't worry if you don't receive an email right away about creating your Agencia account. That typically comes with your first approved travel request. And also, anytime we have a new group of tech speakers, we do encourage you to give talks in your own community, in your own country, in your own region. We do that to help you get familiar with your topics, to build up your comfort level, and to increase the odds of success when you go out to larger events. Obviously, I'm aware that we have tech speakers with a wide range of skills and backgrounds and experience in the speaking space. If you're an established speaker that's spoken at numerous conferences around the globe, the being encouraged to stay local in the beginning may apply slightly to you. We try to consider all factors, including experience and familiarity with topics whenever we get a travel funding. So this is a great general rule of thumb, but may not be a hard and fast rule for every situation. Great. Now, let's talk for a moment about the Mozilla Community Participation Guidelines. This is very important. Tech speakers are expected, just like Mozilla staff, to adhere to the same set of community participation guidelines that all Mozillians follow, including myself. Although I will not be reviewing these Mozilla Community Participation Guidelines with you in detail during today's call, the link to the Mozilla CPG is available in the notes document right now. And all tech speakers are required to indicate that they've reviewed the participation guidelines when we email you your registration form. So very important that you take a look at that, familiarize yourself. Essentially, these guidelines state that you should conduct yourself like respectful, inclusive, professional, and decent human beings. Never engage in toxic, derogatory, destructive behavior while representing Mozilla. In turn, Mozilla will do our best to protect you while you're at an event. Because of that goal, we're currently only sponsoring tech speaker events where the organizers of the event utilize a code of conduct that is applicable to not only the participants, but the staff and the sponsors of the event as well. The reason that we do this is to help ensure that our community operates in safe environments. You'll see a couple of best practices listed on the right-hand side of this slide. These are intended to help you stay safe and represent yourself well when traveling for the program. Before traveling, tech speakers should be sure to familiarize themselves with the specific code of conduct for the event they are attending. And before the event, be sure to make a note of the contact persons that you would be needing to reach out to should any issue or conflict occur. Note of time that person is, being fortunate happens, is very helpful. Because the last thing you want to do is, in the moment, be searching around for the best person to contact. And let's speak for a moment about things you should bring. You can check out the Mozilla Travel Guide for your usual packing tips, but in general, you'll want to remember to bring your tech speaker t-shirt in addition to your normal clothes, your equipment and your slides, including a backup copy, and your passport anytime you travel internationally. The tech speaker t-shirt is something you don't have yet, but it looks something like this. We send these out to all new tech speakers when they first are onboarded into the program. It's not a requirement that you wear your Mozilla tech speaker t-shirt when you speak, but we do have many tech speakers that enjoy wearing it. They wear it with pride. It's a very comfortable t-shirt. It's a very practical t-shirt. Because of the color, it works very well on a vast majority of conference backgrounds, whether it's black, green, red, other colors. It pops, the t-shirt stands out, and it looks great on stage. So something to consider, and you're more than welcome to wear that, but not required. Other things, of course, remember your ticket to the conference or event. Also remember your identification, as some conferences require identification to correlate with your event conference ticket. Of course, bring a backup of your deck and notes. Bring yourself on time, and if you need a timer, bring one for yourself. A few more tips for success. These are some tips you may have heard in the past, but they're as true today as they were the first time you heard them. Practice makes perfect. Anytime you give a speech, make sure to take the time to rehearse it. Get a friendly audience to review it with you. It is tremendously helpful, and it helps you look like a professional when you're on stage, of course. Always bring backups, because you don't want to get caught in a situation where you're unable to access your notes, your slides, or an important document like a ticket. Always arrive early to the venue. Don't let a 10-minute slowdown in traffic be the thing that stands between you and an excellent delivery at a conference. Dress in speaker-friendly clothing, because no one wants to be a floating head with a black t-shirt. And if you have any trouble staying on time, or you're not very familiar with how long your talk may give to deliver, bring yourself a timer. It's a great tool that helps you stay on track and keep your cadence at a correct level. And just a few more tips for success. Here in the Tech Speakers program, we do our best to provide the educational content to our Mozilla Tech Speakers through masterclasses and tech briefings. Through your labs, you've probably had a chance to check out several of the master classes that were recorded already. You may not be familiar with our tech briefings. Tech briefings are short technology training videos, typically 30 to 45 minutes on average, presented by Mozilla staff members. Tech briefings are only available to view if you've completed your Mozilla NDA agreement. And these are designed to help keep tech speakers up to date about Firefox and our underlying web platform development, as well as about new work going on in the Emerging Technologies organization. They're a great tool for staying up to date on the key messages you may wish to deliver and share with your developers, technical audience, and other regional contributors. So once you complete your NDA, be sure to check out the Air Mozilla channel for all of our tech briefings. If you haven't already, check out our master classes on topics like the art of public speaking, how to fire up your audience, graceful ways with Q&A, and we have a lot of others that were not introduced to you via the lab, so be sure to check out those resources. They're very helpful. All right, so that concludes the during the event portion. And now let's speak about after your event. The event feedback form. We call the event feedback form the EFF for short. The EFF is not the most fun part about being in the Tech Speakers program. However, it does provide Mozilla with valuable feedback about your activity and about the event. The event feedback form is the other of the two most important asks that we have for all Mozilla Tech Speakers. And we've done our best to make this as pain-free as possible when it comes to completing. We ask for 3 basic types of information in the EFF, or the event feedback form. We ask about your event specifically, we ask about your talk, and about the general buzz that you noticed. Once it's submitted, the data is compiled, analyzed, and reported up through our internal channels to our department management. We do not share this information externally. It helps our program to get funding every year. It gives Mozilla insights into the industry and helps Mozilla decide where to spend event money for years to come. So we typically ask that this be completed within 14 days of your event's completion. It's very helpful to us. Please take the time to fill these out. They're amazing and we really appreciate it. One more thing to note about the event feedback form is anytime Mozilla provides funding for your event, we make the event feedback form a mandatory ask to go along with your event funding. If you are providing your own travel to an event, if you're speaking in your local region, you're not asking for any funding from Mozilla, we do still strongly encourage the event feedback form, but it is not required. However, if you can take 2 minutes, fill that out, whether you receive funding or not, it is an immense help to us, and again, we really appreciate that. About invoices. So if you received funding from Mozilla and you've completed your event feedback form, you'll be ready to submit your invoice. As you may recall from earlier, Mozilla uses Agencia to book and pay for the big ticket items like flights and hotels. However, smaller expenses are paid by tech speakers and then reimbursed after the event. Invoices are how smaller items like food and public transportation are paid back to you after your approved travel. Tech speakers currently have the ability to choose PayPal or standard bank wire transfer in order to receive their funding after the event. Wire payments are distributed by Mozilla Accounting every Tuesday and on Thursdays, and the Tech Speaker Event Process Guide details how to create an invoice in greater detail. Let's take a quick look here. So this is our standard invoice template. It is required anytime you submit your invoice. What you'll do is your event process document. You can go straight to this invoice. You can go to File, Make a Copy, and that'll create another version of the invoice that is editable. So you can go and add your details and submit your invoice accordingly. A couple things to keep in mind. You'll notice at the bottom of the document, there's a place to select your payment information, whether that be PayPal or bank transfer. So make sure to select the appropriate box down there at the bottom and to add the appropriate details based on the method of payment you're requesting. As you list items on the invoice and for your expense report, make sure to list each item individually. Each item will get its own line item. Please do not combine items such as food. So if you go to lunch, the lunch should be its own item, and then you go out for a snack shortly after, that'll be on a different line item. So please don't combine all of your cabs together and put it on one line item. For every receipt, there should be a line detailing the expense. It's very helpful to get it right the first time. That way we don't have to bounce this back to you and say, hey, please make the following revision so that we're able to process this. Believe it or not, it's not tech speakers about these. In addition to tech speaker staff having to review and verify vet invoices, we send it over to Mozilla Accounting afterwards. And there's another team that verifies vets and reviews the expenses and the invoices. And they tend to be a little bit more of a stickler for the rules. So keeping these in mind early on is very helpful from having to do double work. So let's take a moment and review a few common do's and don'ts. Do save your receipts. Every item that you're expensing should have a receipt. If there is a tragedy and you lose a receipt, please reach out to us. Let us know about that. We'll do our best to work with you and make the situation right. Do make smart purchase decisions. So when you're out traveling and you're deciding what to eat, what sort of restaurant to go to, make smart purchase decisions like you would if you were using your own money. Or if that is not a good metric for you to gauge off of, do what you think a Mozilla staff member would do in a similar situation. Me personally, when I go out to eat, Mozilla is paying for it. I don't necessarily eat McDonald's or the cheapest option, but I also don't go to five-star restaurants. I eat good food that is healthy and wholesome at a fair price, and I encourage everyone to make smart purchase decisions similar to that. We do ask that you submit your invoice within 3 months of your event. This is a Mozilla accounting rule. It makes it much easier if it's within a floating quarter to process these invoices and get the payments made to you. If you have an event or an invoice that is older than 3 months, it may still be possible to get it paid and have that those funds issued to you, but it involves extra work on the part of Mozilla Tech Speaker staff, and it's strongly encouraged that we stay within the 3-month window to avoid any complications, inability to pay, and the added work that goes into late payments. So 3 months is very generous. It's typically not a problem to get invoices in on that time, but letting you know about that deadline so that you're aware early. Another do combine the invoice and the receipts into one PDF. The template that we saw earlier is the cover sheet that'll always be page 1 of the invoice. Page 2 and the subsequent typically contain images of receipts. We do ask that these are combined into one PDF that makes it a single document, easy to follow, easy to read. Additionally, if you're listing your items 1, 2, 3, 4, it's very, very helpful if you can list your receipts 1, 2, 3, 4 in the same order. It makes vetting and verifying that much easier and streamlines the whole process for Mozilla staff, and we really appreciate it when people do that. In terms of please do not round amounts up. List the exact amount that was charged for a purchase. That makes sense. Please do not buy food or drink for others. So if you're at an event and you want to go out and have dinner with someone afterwards, that's absolutely wonderful. We encourage you to make those connections, to go out and do other things after the conference if that's what suits you. However, please let the other person know that while you are able to pay for yourself, you're not able to pay for others. Super simple. Also, as you're putting together your invoice, please do not use your own conversion rate. If your bank requires a different conversion rate, please reach out to us and discuss it before using anything other than the standard market conversion rate for currency conversion. Also, there are some things that are not covered underneath Mozilla Travel. Things like souvenirs, things like cocktails, things like tickets to museums. So recreational activities, sightseeing, souvenirs, alcohol. We typically do not expense or cover these items as part of your tech speaker's travel. But if you want to have 1 glass of wine or 1 beer with your meal at the end of the day, by all means, feel free to order that if that's something that you would typically do. But we do not encourage, going out to the bar and submitting an entire receipt filled with lots of drinks and things like that. That would be something that you would cover with your own expenses. Great. That is the majority of the material that we wanted to cover in terms of the call today. But I wanted to speak with you for in terms of next half of the call. So after Lab 6 sessions are concluded, and we have one more taking place here on Wednesday, here's what you can expect. We will be emailing everyone with official acceptance letters, and that'll contain a link to the registration form as well. The registration form is needed to gather a little bit of basic information about you so that we can add you to our roster. Again, we do not share any of this information with external parties. Also, we'll be sending you a t-shirt request form via email. That'll give us information, give us your shipping information as well as your site preferences. So your very own Mozilla Tech Speaker t-shirt. Keep in mind, we do not have a massive inventory of these t-shirts on hand. So what we typically do is we send out our t-shirt request form, then we reach out to our supplier once we have all those responses in, and we make the specific order for the shirts that we'll receive. So give us a few weeks from the time you complete this form to place that order, receive the order, and then get everyone's individual t-shirts outbound to them. Great. Another thing is we'll be completing an NDA agreement. All Mozilla Tech speakers are covered by a super simple NDA agreement that just says if something is told to you in confidence, please respect that confidence and do not share it outside of Mozilla. Also, we'll be adding you to the official Tech Speakers Telegram channel. Many of you are already in Telegram in channels with your specific onboarding cohort, but we'll be adding you to the main channel that we use for all Tech Speaker messages. And then finally, we'll be sending out a short onboarding survey to gather your feedback on your particular experience going through the labs, working with your facilitators, and etc. So those are just a few examples of what to expect next. So we can stop here and we can answer some questions. right, let me take a look here. Pardon me. The first question, if we already have do we to set up one funds, or can it be linked to our current account? This is an excellent question. In fact, your current agency account will in fact work. However, there are some things that we need to do on the back end to change your cost center and allow individuals to have their bookings be allocated to the appropriate cost center within Mozilla. So if you also work for a program such as Reps, you'll still be able to use your same Agencia login credentials, but what we will do is we will add you to our program, and that'll allow you to select it when you make your request for booking. Question number 2. Should we add events we speak at that happen without us needing any funding for? Yes, absolutely. So as we mentioned earlier, the 2 most important things that we ask are adding your events to the activities calendar and completing event feedback forms, because this gives us the critical information we need to keep the program running this year and into the future. The event feedback form is only required if you get Mozilla funding, but we want to know about all of your tech speaker related activities and speaking engagements. So please add all of your speaking engagements to the calendar, because that'll give us the most accurate information containing all the data that we can report at the end of the year in terms of how many talks tech speakers gave, where they spoke at, what kind of audience they were, what were the topics. It's very valuable, and adding all those events to the calendar gives us a holistic view that we need. Question number 3, are we allowed to speak under the Mozilla Tech Speaker sponsorship in addition to our company sponsorship, or is that a conflict of interest? I am trying to understand this question fully. So what I'm hearing here is that there are 2, so our company is sponsoring our travel. Additionally, I'm requesting funding for Mozilla Tech Speakers. So typically there is not a conflict of interest, but there could potentially be. Let me explain some situations. If you work for a company and they are funding you to travel and speak at an event, they're paying for your airfare and they are paying for your hotel, then we obviously wouldn't want to ask Mozilla Tech Speakers for funding for that as well, because you would be getting funding from 2 different sources, and that would be the equivalent of like embezzling or fraud. So obviously we wouldn't want to try to get funding from different locations for the same purpose, because that would be illegal and would be considered fraud. However, there's not inherently a conflict of interest if you're traveling for your company. So if your company will pay for hotel, but they cannot pay for airfare, then feel free to reach out to Mozilla Tech Speakers and request that missing part, the airfare. I hope that answered your question. I hope I understood what you meant there. If I didn't quite understand, then please reach out to me on a one-to-one basis, and I'll do my best to clarify anything that wasn't. Anonymous Chameleon is coming in and inserting a question into line 4. What is the expected quota for speaking engagements for a tech speaker? This is an excellent question. The expected quota is anywhere around 4 talks or engagements a year. We ask and encourage you to speak at least once per year. That leads to about 4 engagements a year. When we do invitations for like training and getting all tech speakers together, we oftentimes will have a bar associated with activity level for invitations. Sometimes that bar has been 3 events conducted on a floating period of time. Sometimes that bar has been 4. But typically we ask for about 4 events per year. Now, we understand that things happen. Life gets in the way. Sometimes you get a new job. Sometimes you have to move. We're very understanding that there'll be dips. There may be peaks and valleys with your speaker activity. What we do in terms of tech speakers that are not active in the program. If you've been with tech speakers all year and you've not put any activities on the calendar, what we typically do is reach out via email. We say, hey, we've noticed that you've not been very active in joining monthly calls or putting activities on the calendars. Is tech speakers still something that you want to continue to participate in? If so, do you think you could be a little bit more active next year? For those people that replied to that email and say, yes, absolutely, I want to stay in tech speakers, we're understanding. We'll work with you and provide additional time. For those people that not respond, however, I do say so much for joining the tech speakers program, but we move them to an inactive status and then remove them from the program. Yes, is it a year starting? So a follow-up question, is the year starting from now? It is not, yes, let's say starting from now. What we do is we do a floating average. So because we're in March here, please don't feel like you need to squeeze events in for the year. We understand that it's already been 3 months that have passed in 2019. So we take all of those factors into consideration, absolutely. I see number 5 is some excellent tips for invoices. If you haven't, please take a look at those. Those are very helpful. Thank you to whomever added those. Yanis, I think that may have been you. Yes, after Wednesday's session, we will share the slides out with everyone. All of the new tech speakers will receive the notes and slides to this session. Do we get a link to the tech speaker speaking calendar later on? Yes, I hope I answered this question. You can actually view this link currently. Oh, sorry, the link I posted here was the wrong one. Hopefully, there should be a link number 3 at the bottom of the document here in the resources section. That should take you to the tech speakers activity calendar currently. I hope I did provide the right link there. And if you would like to be added as an edit, as a curator or a person with edit permissions, reach out to me. But the tech speakers activity calendar is something that you can view currently. Oh, excuse me, activities calendar, excuse me. Yes, we will add, I was using the CFP calendar with the activities calendar, my mistake. Yes, you will absolutely be added to the tech speakers activity calendar. Question 7 is just asking for a link to point them to the correct calendar for adding speaking activities. So that is called Tech Speaker Activities Calendar, and we will make sure that you have that correct link. Thank you so much to whoever asked number 7. Okay, that looks like our final question. Great. Anonymous Wolverine, final call for questions. All right. Well, if we have any questions that come in after this, we'll do our best to either address them via email, via Telegram, or during the call that we'll have on Wednesday. And then Anonymous Wolverine is just sneaking a question here. If we need to change our participating email address, yes, that is an excellent question. So we have a registration form that we send out so that you can provide us with your name, your email address, your shipping address, and things like that. Anytime that you need to change a piece of information, perhaps you moved, perhaps you picked up a new topic that you want to speak on, or just something else has changed, you can reach out to us and request to fill out that form again. And you can change your email, you can update all of your information, or you can even just ping us and say, hey, I have a new email, and we'd be happy to change that for you. So yes, we'll capture all that information in the registration email. And if at any time you need to change some of the information that you provided, you can either reach out to us directly or just ask to complete that form again, and we'll send it back to you. Great. And if I'm not mistaken, in the Tech Speaker event process doc, there may actually be a link to that, so you can update your information if you wish as well. Great. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. That looks to be all of the questions. We'll be sure to circle back to this document and make sure that we haven't forgotten anyone or overlooked any questions. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for attending, and congratulations on making it to our Tech Speakers crew. Bye, everyone.